Welcome to the Promise Podcast, where we discuss how brands can deliver on their promise with a great customer experience and business impact. I'm your host, Harald Lamberts, and in each episode, I talk to business executives, thought leaders, and founders about how to achieve effective collaboration across departments, such as brand, marketing, product development, customer experience, and support, all with one goal in mind: a seamless customer journey with great business results. In today's episode, I'm delighted to welcome Adriana Piazza, a lead customer experience strategist at Qualtrics for the Nordics region. Welcome, Adriana.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today, Harald.
Yeah, nice to have you on. So, Adriana, before we dive in, what is a brand that truly delivers on their promise to you in terms of service quality, customer experience, personally?
I'm an extremely practical person. So I will not mention something romantic, but I will mention a couple of brands that are very practical as I am. The first one is Revolut. I think you know Revolut.
Yep.
Okay. Why is it one of my favorite brands? Because they really act upon promise. So they promise a simple way to do banking and they do it. And they simplified a lot my daily banking activities and they helped me to communicate about banking with my Gen Z children. And the second one, for similar reasons, is Uber. Same reasons, more or less. Very simple communication. They are punctual. Everything works. So concrete, tangible benefits that they provide.
I know. I was just in Florida and used Uber again. I was like, oh, this is so convenient. I looked at myself standing at the side of the road waving at taxis in the past. It's like, okay, this is so much better.
Completely new experience.
For sure. All right. Well, great example. So let me introduce you properly, and then we'll hit the ground running. So Adriana Piazza has been a customer experience professional for roughly 10 years. But before that, she started out in various roles as a product manager, account manager, marketing manager, communication manager, quality manager, before going down the customer experience path. Now she's using all that experience across companies and disciplines to help organizations operationalize the voice of the customer, using Qualtrics as a tool to maximize impact in CX and the bottom line. Welcome to the Promise Podcast, Adriana.
Thank you. Thank you.
How was that for an introduction? Did I miss anything out?
No,
You want to
didn't
add?
miss anything. Yeah, you said basically what happened in my professional life. So I started with marketing, and then it was about 2012, 2011, 2012. I was asked to look into this discipline, which was quite new in Europe by that time.
Yep.
And so I was working for a bank in that period, and the head of the bank asked me to look into this customer experience management. Probably he didn't know exactly what it was, and neither did I. But I spent my first 90 days doing my homework. So I studied a lot on all the available sources, and I connected with the few practitioners that I could find in Europe by that time. And I finally realized that customer experience management was really what I wanted to do. So it was really the discipline that was missing. And I realized that as a marketing person, I had already done a lot of stuff around customers. You know, I was able in the years to make different projects around improving the experience of customers, creating communities, this kind of stuff. But what was missing was a methodology. What was missing was a framework that could really put all these fragmented exercises together in a way that could be possible to calculate the value of all the activities that were done for customers. And that's why I fall in love with customer experience management.
I was wondering that when looking at your resume on LinkedIn, I saw quality manager, product manager, communication manager. Like, okay, you're touching on all the different aspects of customer experience actually, and then now you end up in a role where that is actually, focused on bringing it all together from a customer centric point of view. So, and now you're probably dealing with these functions when you help organizations do it. Yeah. So
Yes, exactly. I'm
interesting.
dealing with digital teams.
Mm-hmm.
And also, what I really loved of experience management in general, not only customer experience, when we speak about experience management, we also consider the employee experience management. But what I really
Yeah.
loved was that you can really measure the impact of what you do. So you can align your efforts with measurable value, financial value, economic value, commercial value. And I was basically coming from business. And so it was really very important for me to stay in a space where I could measure the impact of what I was doing. And this is what I'm basically helping customers today to do.
That's
So
a
my
great bridge
work.
because that's actually what most companies still struggle with. Yeah. Because I don't think there are many companies that would disagree with the fact that customer centricity is a good idea. Yeah. So, like, all companies would probably agree that focusing on the customer would be a good idea. But how you operationalize that is still, and how you make that tangible with measurable outcomes that are also serving the business. That's of course something that companies still struggle with when they try to align all their functional departments, for example. So yes, let's talk about more about that methodology and how you operationalize that, because that's typically what is still challenging, I guess, for quite a few companies. Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree, even if I can tell you that in the last 3, 4 years, I could see quite an interesting acceleration
Mhm. Yeah.
around this capability that you mentioned to operationalize customer experience data. So
For sure.
basically, in the big space of customer experience, what I decided to specialize in is voice of customer management,
Yeah.
that I consider to be the hard pillar of the entire customer experience methodology. Because with voice of customer management, you can really create a framework
Mhm.
that allows you to operationalize, as you mentioned, to operationalize the customer insights that you collect, and allows you to align your efforts
Yeah.
to measurable results. So, voice of customer management is a discipline. Is a discipline based on a methodological framework that can be simplified with listen,
Mhm.
understand, and act. And
Yeah.
now with the artificial intelligence, agentic artificial intelligence capabilities, we can also add personalize. So 4 pillars: listen, understand, act, and personalize. And what a voice of customer manager is supposed to do is to create a methodology around this. So create something that makes it possible to collect customer insights continuously, and not in a randomic way or in an inconsistent way, but continuously, and from customer insights identify which are the areas where the experience needs be improved.
I like that point because, of course, historically there's been always been market research or customer research, but that usually occasional research and then out insights that basically people learn about and then they act about, but often not real time and ongoing. Yeah. So, and I think what you're sometimes also not based on your service offering, but more like fundamental research, which I guess there's still value to that. But I think what you're saying is really constantly getting new insights with your evolving service offering, and because also your service is changing all the time, constantly new insights that keep you in touch with your customers, also like what is going on. And then I guess also, you know, formalizing how you act on that. I guess that's often, of course, that's key. I guess because insights are everywhere, but making sure you act on the right ones, I guess, is of course key in operationalizing it. Can you maybe touch on that a little bit? How you help also enable
Yeah,
teams for that?
so yeah, and you also mentioned something that that I wanted to focus a little bit on,
Yeah, sure.
because you mentioned that we started doing voice of customer management many years ago.
Yep.
I would say 2010 probably. By that time, it was more a market research approach that organizations had. So most of the
Mhm.
time, the research on customer expectations and on customer satisfaction was based on traditional market research approach and was not run internally, but was an external provider who was
Yep.
giving every now and then PowerPoint with insights that were not actionable. And then it was around 2018, 2016, 2018, we started seeing voice of customer programs and employee voice of employee programs
Mhm.
working together and being basically driven by actionability. And then we saw the omni-channel dimension characterizing the new voice of customer program. So where brands realized that it was not only with surveys that it was possible to monitor and to identify the pain points or the areas that needed to be intervened, but then it was clear that in our organizations we have a lot of data that are hidden, for example, in customer care conversations or in a chatbot conversation or in claims or even in emails that customers send to the customer care, for example. And all these are insights are not insights, but at the beginning they are set of data,
Mhm.
unstructured data that can be analyzed in the proper way in order to identify the insights that really can help make these improvements.
Yeah, and the good thing there is you already have this. Yeah, it's not
And you
something you.
already have that. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. So
yeah.
the exercise, you ask me, how do you help your clients to use all these amount of data? What I always say to my clients is to start with a use case where they can then measure the impact of what they have measured, understood, and
Yeah.
act upon. So always try to create your voice of customer program starting from something very simple, for example, but simple but concrete, so that you then can create a narrative in your organization where you can exactly show the benefit that you have created for your organization.
And how do
So
you choose? How do you choose that? Is that, for
it
example,
depends.
asking the client like where are you hurting the most, or are you losing money right now, or like how do you identify a good starting point for that?
I would say that the best way to identify the starting point is understanding the business priorities and the
Mhm.
strategic priorities of your organization. This is one of the activities that I do most with my clients.
Mhm.
And it is let's start from the business and strategic priorities that
Mhm.
you have today in your organization. And from these priorities, then we can identify which are the drivers that can help to satisfy those priorities. And with our Voice of Customer program, we can try to act upon those drivers. So, for example, uh, if we know that we have to reduce to create efficiency to create efficiency, so basically the exercise is a cost reduction, we can start on identifying those experiences that create the biggest number of calls to the customer care.
Yeah.
So, and this is a practical exercise that makes you then, okay, let's see now, are we really able to reduce the calls to come to the customer care? Or are we able to reduce the length of a call? So if we are, let's say, able to identify a specific driver where we can act upon, this makes every voice of customer exercise be very useful for the organization.
And I think even combining the two things you mentioned, yeah, like one, first of all, strategically identifying what is key for you as a business, and using the unstructured data or mining with, it's like, oh, where are we lacking that at the moment the most? And then you can probably map those together and say, okay, if this is important, and these, like if these 10 areas are important, and these three are actually performing the worst, that maybe that's a great opportunity to start with.
Absolutely. So what you mentioned is what I like to call provide an outside-in vision of the business. So rather than acting only upon the inside-out vision, which
Yeah.
is the vision that you can have as a manager in your organization, voice of customer brings the point of view of the customer in the organization.
Yeah.
And so, yes, definitely, it's the combination of the two that creates creates
And then,
value.
of course, then you can provide immediate value and a high chance of showing a real impact. Also, because changing the way of working of like this across all the teams is, of course, taking time, and also you want to make sure you, I guess, you deliver some tangible results early on, so that also everybody is supporting scaling it further. Yeah, so that if you don't deliver results in the first 6 months, then of course also people are starting to doubt the way of working. So I think, how do you go
Yeah,
about this? Is that
yeah. Every voice of customer program is a change management exercise, and
exactly?
we all
Yeah.
know that for change management is absolutely important to be able to show results in a short period.
How do you do
And
that? Do you set like a proof of concept or a pilot target or something like that? How do you go about that normally with your clients? Is that
a
how?
proof
What?
of concept is something that can help, but a proof of concept is normally more useful if you wanted to appreciate the capabilities of the technology, of the voice of customer
Yeah.
technology. Normally, with the proof of concept, you are not able to measure the impact. The impact of the initiatives comes when you have implemented the initiatives. Because voice of customer management, as we said from the beginning, is listen, so collect
Yeah.
insights, collect feedbacks, understand, so make feedbacks become actionable insights, but then act. So
Yeah.
if you don't act upon the information that you collect, you will never be able to appreciate then a tangible benefit.
Yeah.
So a proof of concept is not enough to give to the company the time that the company needs to implement action and be able then to measure the impact of these actions.
So how would you do it then? Like, what do you, more like a tangible, a real pilot project? Is that fair then, or like a first project? Like, how do you?
It's a first project. Let's say it's a
Yeah.
first project that can be configured as a pilot if you like the word pilot. But
I don't
what
know,
is
but
important is that this project has the action component in place.
yeah.
And then you can measure the impact of the action that you have implemented.
Actually, whether we call it pilot or not, but more like starting small and not starting across the company everywhere, huh? Because then the change management might also, I guess, work against you a little bit. Or is that how you approach it? Like that,
There are
select one or
different,
two
yeah.
tangible projects that are fairly overseeable in terms of scope, so that you can also show initial results. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are probably when we speak about the change management essence is even more can give a more competent even more competent point of view than mine. But as I mentioned before, every voice of customer program is a change management exercise, and you can decide either to apply an agile methodology. So, for example, say, okay, let's start from a small, very small project. I don't know, I give you an example. I wanted to improve the e-commerce funnel on my e-commerce site. And so I focus on that specific, and I wanted to, in 6 months time, I wanted to measure the impact of the actions that I put in place to improve, to reduce the cart abandonment, for example. And that this is an agile approach, so a very specific use case where you can, in a short time, appreciate the impact of what you have done.
And the good thing, you can actually work with the execution teams then, you have to, and not in some sort of like tactical team alone. So you also working closely with the delivery team, so you can actually make tangible changes to see real impact there, I guess. One thing that we do, because we follow pretty much the same approach that you described, but one thing that we've also learned is that while it is great to start small with a tangible project, it's also important to have an executive level a longer term view of how this is a first step. So that it is part of a program or of a longer term transformational effort and not a standalone project. Because I think also once you have these results, you then also want to show, of course, how are we going to do this at a larger scale or in multiple projects or along the entire journey or multiple propositions, etc. Is that something you also try to achieve, is to say, okay, yes, start small and tangible, but also make sure there is a long-term program that this is the first step of.
I call it North Star. So what I say to my customers is always have a North Star for your voice of customer program. So you start setting the basics, and then you can define your roadmap in a way that your program then becomes a strategic one, an enterprise one. And
who is the key role? Who is the key role you're looking for in a client, in a customer of Qualtrics? Like, who's the key role that you're trying to get this commitment or sponsorship from? Like, is that in marketing or?
More and more, we find customer experience managers or head of customer experience. So more and more organizations have a specific team of people who are appointed to manage voice of customer and customer experience programs. Sometimes it still happens to find these practitioners in the marketing team or in the operations, in the customer.
And ideally, all three of them. Because then
ideally all three of them. And also, it's an evolution, because if I go back only 3 years, for example, I would have never said 3 years ago that customer experience and customer care would have met in a space where they could work together. But this convergence is something that we see more and more. So when I started dealing with customer experience management, it was even, there was even some competition between voice of customer people and customer care people. So customer care people were seen like the ones that had to manage only the issue of the customer, while the customer experience or voice of customer people were seen like the strategic team who could. Now the two are meeting more and more, and there is a space of convergence, and in this convergence area there is a lot of value. First of all, because customer care is still the moment of truth where our customers tell us a lot about the experience that they are having with the brand. So when a customer has an issue, that moment is the moment of truth where you can really understand where you are performing well and where you're not performing well as a brand. And second, all the conversations that we have in a customer care are an invaluable mine of customer experience information.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
one of the evolutions that I wanted to mention is that until I would say 5 years ago, most of voice of customer programs were based on surveys.
Yeah.
Now, voice of customer programs are more and more omni-channel ones. Omni-channel means that you can ingest a lot of information from different unsolicited sources and
Mhm.
have a more robust set of data to make your decisions upon.
Perfect. Yeah,
And
I was
thanks
going to
God
say
we have
because
artificial
one.
intelligence that can help here.
Yeah, I was going to say because we see many departments, of course, being either very focused on marketing awareness and activation or customer service. So sell more or solve issues. But the actual customer experience, of course, is along the entire journey, from awareness to consideration to purchase to post-purchase to service usage and customer support. So how do you make sure, and it's great that you're already describing that this with a more journey-focused approach, and that these are less separate now and converging more. But how do you help further make sure that you look at the total customer experience and less fragmented as you described? Can you maybe
It's a
give an example?
cultural shift. It's a cultural shift that happened in the years. So now the customer journey concept is something that almost all customer experience people have in mind.
Yeah, so this helps,
The
huh?
problem, yeah, the problem is out of PowerPoint
Mhm.
or Miro or Mural or whatever other
Yeah,
solution that can help creating or mapping a customer
yeah,
journey, then how can I really understand what happens to my customers
yeah,
along their entire journey? So how can I keep track on an individual point of view? So think about Adriana who activated her Revolut account and is daily using the solution. So how can I keep track of what Adriana
yeah,
is daily doing? And this is one dimension. And of course, the voice of customer solutions help here because advanced voice
sure.
of customer solution give the possibility to have the single customer view, which
Mhm.
means have the possibility to follow exactly what a customer does along their entire
Yeah,
end-to-end journey and be able to see where the satisfaction goes down or goes up. So
yeah, and then
this
add
is
to
the
that
big value.
your point of listen, act, and measure. If I'm reminding it correctly, but I think the mapping and Miro or whiteboards or whatever is of course useful to get your head around it. But then that's mainly listen. If you want to act on it, then of course those tools don't really work because you can't really manage all your activities there, and that's why a constant influx of new insights, whether it's mining your customer service data or a survey or other tools that you use to collect insights, and then also track how you which of those you actually act upon. I always compare it to product owners and agile managers saying they need Jira or DevOps to plan their backlog. And if you don't act on your journey, then you're basically missing this backlog. And so like you're only learning, but you're not doing anything. So I
Yeah.
think that's also the acting that you mentioned is really key, of course, to also say, okay, how do we prioritize across these omni-channel touch points, which of these issues we address and which not? Can you maybe shed a few words on how you also help organizations like determine a process for that, like which ones they solve and which ones they don't? Do you have a playbook for that, or how do you approach that?
Can you formulate it again,
Yeah,
Harald?
so like once you have the understanding of all the big issues, maybe from different sources, and then prioritize which of these issues do you act on. Yeah. Um, how do you help organizations decide on which key issues to address and which not, and to
Yeah.
prioritize your efforts?
Yeah, so the effort prioritization is one
Exactly.
of the biggest point in a voice of customer program, and also in this case we have the help of the artificial intelligence
Hmm.
that makes it possible to identify which are the most relevant drivers that define the satisfaction and unsatisfaction of your customer. So the
Yeah.
first level, the most simple level of decision can be, let's start from where customers are more unsatisfied.
Yeah.
But sometimes this is not enough, because maybe that specific friction or that specific pain points
Hmm.
is very expensive to be solved. And so here is where the business case comes in place. And I go back to what I was mentioning at the beginning. So the exercise is starting from the customer point of view, understand what works and what does not work, and then using your capabilities as a manager, be able to create a business case around where
Yeah.
you don't have to intervene.
And that's where it's a key, I guess, to involve other stakeholders than just the CX managers. Yeah, to also make sure you have the business managers and the product owners involved in making sure that you also link it to the business case, like understanding what
Absolutely,
it takes.
absolutely. Working in silos is something that you cannot do anymore.
Exactly. No.
When I started with customer experience, I was mainly working with a small group of people who were addicted to analysis. So they were very much focused on measurement,
Yeah.
and they were analyzing the feedbacks, and then they were but there was no, let's say, this cross departmental view of the experience of customers. And so most of the time, the actionability was not put in place because the other stakeholders were not correctly involved in the process.
Yeah.
I can say that this happens less and less, or at least the most mature organizations have learned to work across silos,
Mhm.
and have really learned to distribute the insights to the right people in the right time, in a way that every internal stakeholder can use the insights in the proper way.
Wonderful.
So, a practical example, again, mentioning a user experience. If I collect feedbacks, I must have the possibility to give the feedbacks immediately to the UX designer in a way that they can immediately, or as most
Yeah, it
possible,
needs to
fast.
arrive at the right people. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
So
so,
that is
yes.
going better. So that's already improving. And I see the same. I see the same, like much more. The journey approach helps also understand. Okay, how does each touch point play a role, and how can we make sure the right insights end up with the right people that can actually do something about it? Um, what do you still see as the main challenges that brands face when implementing the voice of the customer? Like, this is progressing, and what is still a big challenge for many?
One of the big challenges, we have already mentioned it, is aligning the investments with a benefit.
Okay. Yeah.
So when I started in Voice of Customer, the companies that were asking for a return on investment model were very, very few. So
Mhm.
basically, they were saying, okay, let's start listening, and then we see what happens. This is not anymore.
Yeah.
So now one of the challenges is aligning the investments with the potential return. The
Yeah.
second challenge is again related to change management.
Hmm.
So be able to align the entire organization on the benefit that the single people will have from the customer insights. So align all the organization in a way that all the people from the frontline people to the executive know why the company is investing on customer experience on a,
Yeah.
on a general level, but then also be able to explain to single people which is the benefit that they will receive personally out of the customer insights
Yeah,
to
so
do
much more
their work better.
intentional as well. Like not like, oh, let's just see what is out there and then explore what we need to fix, but much more intentional. Like we know what we want to improve, and then link it also to like what outcomes can we actually achieve with that.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is a two-way, it is a double way work.
Wonderful, yeah. Okay, so then of course the obligatory AI question. You already kind of mentioned it a few times. Everywhere AI, of course, at the moment. How does it affect your work at the moment? Like, can you? I guess you mentioned already. It simplifies mining unstructured data. Is that the main benefit, or is there a few other things that you really see that you can leverage?
Artificial intelligence has been in voice of customer management for many years.
Hmm.
So when we think about the traditional artificial intelligence, and we think about how the natural language processing algorithms can help in making unstructured data become actionable insights. This
Hmm.
is the first benefit that artificial intelligence has been providing to voice of customer programs for many years.
Hmm.
And then more recently, we see generative AI, who
Hmm.
is also present in a voice of customer program. Think, for example, how generative AI can help in democratizing data inside the organization. So, for
Point.
example, having a generative AI capabilities that can summarize insights or can help to interact with the dashboards and with reports in a natural language. This helps a lot to distribute and to democratize data inside the organization. So
Yeah, a
not
lot.
all people in our company are data scientists or psychologists who like to go into data. So we need to have
Yeah.
the help. We can use artificial intelligence, the generative capabilities of artificial intelligence to simplify the understanding of customer experience data.
That's massive. I mean, I think because historically you need to find exactly that question that you're looking for and scan all the different surveys and results. Maybe now you can just ask,
You
what's the
can
insight
ask
on this?
in natural language and you
Yeah.
can obtain a summarization. And this is definitely one of the benefits. Another benefit is think, for example, of the main pillar of every voice of customer program, which is surveys. Okay.
Hmm.
So we still use a lot of surveys, even if
Hmm.
customers are replying less and less to surveys. Still, we
Yeah.
use a lot these surveys. But now with artificial intelligence, we can have conversational surveys.
Hmm.
So a conversational survey is a survey where the second question is based on the answer to the previous question.
For
So
sure.
the survey can become a conversation. And we have
It becomes
already
an interview. It becomes more of a research interview than a
it
static list.
becomes an interview,
Yeah.
and we all know that the open questions that we have in our surveys, customers tend not to give too much information.
Yeah.
So what made you happy? Nothing.
Yeah.
What made you unhappy? The agent was rude. So
Yeah.
this is the level of insights that we collect with traditional surveys,
Yeah.
but with conversational surveys, and
Yeah.
this is possible due to Gen AI, we can really establish a conversation and gather much more information from our customers. And
Yeah, it's
then there
actually
is,
both. Yeah, it's actually the mining and the language processing and the Gen AI that it can
and the Gen
both
AI
understand
together.
and ask back in a meaningful way to get a lot more richer contextual insight from.
Absolutely.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah.
And then now we all know that agentic AI also is coming.
Mhm.
And in the space of voice of customer, agentic AI will play a very important role because agentic AI will be able to create personalized experiences to customers based on their the insights that they provide.
Yeah.
The agentic AI can generate automatic flows, like, for example,
Yeah.
um, identify the frustration of a customer and automatically generate a call to the customer care.
Yeah.
So this kind of automation.
Yeah, or even scan 55 similar events that happened recently, and use the solutions for those, because you get more like collective knowledge that a single agent can never have. Yeah, so that's, I think that's also
Absolutely. This is another example.
wonderful. Okay, no, that sounds great. I mean, it's an exciting space. I guess that also keeps you on your toes to make sure that you're constantly leveraging the latest and greatest of that, what AI can also provide you with in Qualtrics to enable your clients to do with that. Okay, so one of the, I mean, in this podcast, of course, we always focus on how brands can deliver on their promise. Yeah, so the cross-functional collaboration is really key on that. How do you make sure that not just customer care is using this, or just marketing, or just online, but really the cross-functional collaboration? Is that what do you see it in terms of trend there? Like, what are you doing there in helping your clients to make sure that these disciplines are also coming together to discuss which efforts to fix? Is that something that you're seeing something a trend in, or particular companies that do this really well, or maybe something to share for the audience on that could
Some
be
companies
insight?
do it well. Some companies do it well. Some companies still have to learn how to
Mhm.
do it.
Yeah,
I would say that there are some industries like the telecommunication industry or the banking and finance in general, insurance companies. So some industries are definitely more mature here. And from a governance point of view, they have defined governance models that
exactly.
really make it possible to work all together on the customer data. But then we have the help of platforms.
Mhm.
And as I said from the beginning, I'm specialized in voice of customer, and therefore in voice of customer solutions, even because they are what really makes it possible to align the entire organization on what is happening to our customers and what is not
Exactly.
happening to our customers. So the technology helps a lot here.
It is in
With
the end. It is a combination of technology, way of working, and the governance that you put in place. Yeah. So, like, how do you do? How do you act on this? Who decides, and where do you find it? And how does technology help that? And then, of course, get establish these routines in the collaboration between teams to make sure that they're used properly. And that's almost like that's a transformational effort that you're trying to do. And I guess in the beginning, like we said, we start with the tangible smaller projects, and then hopefully you can scale that then across multiple projects, journeys, teams, propositions, etc.
yeah, Yes,
Great.
it's not only technology. Voice of customer is technology, culture, and competencies.
I mean, we see that a lot. Yeah, like we get approached so many times that companies license a tool, can be any multiple tools, and then realize, okay, this doesn't work without a proper, yeah, way of working and governance around it. And I think is exactly what you're saying as well. Is like make sure the tool is great, but it doesn't solve anything in itself. So it's really important to also embed it and integrate it into this way of working and governance that you establish to act on those customer insights. Okay, and journey management we talked about a bit. People work on journeys across journeys. Um, how does all the voice of the customer insights that you talked about? How do you to which degree do you include journey management in that? Is that already like embedded into the Qualtrics tool, or do you connect to it, or like how do you see that typically working within the organizations?
Uh, Qualtrics tool allows to have a customer journey view, of
Mhm,
course, of
mhm.
what customers do. And again, as we said before, it is extremely important that the voice of customer solution allows this omni-channel view of
Exactly.
what customer do. Um, think, for example, when you call the call center, when you
Mhm.
call the call center, do you really want to explain to the agent exactly what happened to you when you were navigating on the website and you were trying to buy the trousers that you really wanted and you could not find it, and then you put it in the cart and then you had an issue with the payment? Do you really want, anytime you are with an agent, to explain it, and then maybe they pass you to another agent and you have to explain it again? So a good voice of customer solution really allows to have the end-to-end vision of the
Yeah,
customer, really allows to see that Harald was having that specific issue when he was navigating,
yeah,
and then he tried, for example, to solve it with a chatbot, and I can monitor Harald and I can see that his second step was chatting with the bot. And then there he was still not able to have his issue solved. And so he called the customer care. But the agent must be able to see what happened to you before.
I
And
love
so
that
this is
because
when
otherwise you're first letting the customer go through that pain, and then you letting them go through it again to
a
explain it to
second
you.
pain, because and the
Exactly,
frustration and the effort
is
increase.
even worse for sure.
Absolutely. So when
That's
we say that a voice of customer solution should be able to provide this end-to-end
yeah,
view of what happens to customers,
that's great.
this is
Because if
exactly.
the agent can then say, "Oh, I can see you already tried this," and then you feel understood, and then at least you're a lot happier that you're being supported.
Exactly. Yeah.
100%. I love that, Adriana. That's a great example, actually. Okay, so yeah, we're actually already getting to the end of the podcast. So thanks a lot.
Yeah.
This has been great. And now that we've gone through it, like who should be our next guest? Who do you think would be really good to also have on this podcast?
Let's say a bit creative here.
Go ahead.
So why not, instead of another practitioner, or
Mhm.
why don't we invite someone from the other side of the table? So, for
Mhm.
example, a
Ah, okay.
customer of one of those loved brands, like, I don't know, Lego, for example, or
Mhm.
Ducati, or those, hyper loved brands. And why don't we ask the customer, what makes the difference? Why are you in love with that brand? Are they able to create wow experiences to you, or are they able to solve your issues when you have an issue and so your effort is very low? So, what makes you be a fan of that brand?
Wonderful.
And maybe we can also ask something about, do you think they really listen to you? Do you think they really use the insights that you provide to make things better? So instead of an additional practitioner, next time a customer.
That's great. It's great that you mentioned the variation. What we try to do is also have executives or people from tooling or CX practitioners in the business, but also marketeers or brand specialists, but not an actual customer of a specific brand, but unless we all are, I guess. But that's a great idea. I think also to speak the customer's perspective on how do you feel companies are actually treating you, and do you actually believe their promise, or is it not really authentic? All right. Well, to wrap up, Adriana, what is one final recommendation for companies that want to get started with Voice of the Customer program? If there's one thing you would want to for them to take home, like what would it be?
I said it more than once, but I want to repeat it
That's
again.
repetition is
Start
good.
with something where you can then act upon in a way that you can then measure the impact of what you have done. So don't start with a big project where you cannot then work on the insights that you have collected. And align your efforts with a measurable value. And don't forget to create a nice story inside your organization to explain the value of what you are doing with Voice of Customer.
Wonderful.
People like stories, so be
Of course.
able to create a nice story that can really engage all the people in your organization.
Yeah, I like that.
Starting
It's just
with
more
that.
engaging, but it sticks, and it also in the same time you're explaining how it's going to help, which is, I guess, important. So with that, I think most people, hopefully, that's a very insightful and helpful for people to apply. We see the same thing: tangible, small scope, make results, and then repeat, scale. Is definitely something that works. Also, if you really want to get teams believe in it and invest in it and make sure that this is a persistent change in the way of working. So it sounds like you're making great contributions into that within your role in Qualtrics. So thank you, Adriana, for that. Much
Thank you.
appreciated. And keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today, and let's stay connected.
How can people connect with you? If an audience wants to connect with you and talk a bit more, like where can they find you?
I can be found on LinkedIn, and we can start conversations there.
Wonderful. I will make sure that when we post this on LinkedIn, that we will tag you so people can find you. All right. Much appreciated. Thank you, Adriana. So that was another episode of the Promise Podcast, where we discuss effective ways for brands to deliver on their promise with a great customer experience and business impact. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, or leave a review. Check haroldlammers.com for more great content. Hope to see you again in the next episode. Until then, keep pushing to deliver on the promise.